everybody! Welcome to So It's a Show. We're introducing it a little differently this week because, there's a bonus episode coming your way.
What?
Yeah, I know, bonus, woo! So, in this episode, in our discussion of Ishtar, we mentioned that there is a documentary about Ishtar called Waiting for Ishtar. And awesome sauce, we got to talk to the director.
What?
Yeah. So cool.
Cool interview time.
But when we recorded our discussion of Ishtar, we did not know that we were going to get to talk to him. We had reached out to him, and we did not know if he was going to say yay or nay. And we did end up talking to him. So that's why in this conversation we don't mention our interview with him.
But here's a little preview. And then we'll get into the episode. And then refresh your podcast feeds the following week so that you can listen to our full interview with him, which is insightful and fun and just wonderful because, it's talking and it's us. That is way too prideful. X-nay. So just refresh your podcast feeds.
So with the documentary, it was actually a conversation about guilty pleasures, if you saw that, and talking about things you're not supposed to like. And Ishtar is certainly something you're not supposed to like.
Well, and you said here that something touched you, and I saw in one of the movie previews that I watched that you put out that it moved you. In what way did it move you?
Gosh, that's a good question. I think. Yeah, maybe move is a very strong word. It spoke to me on a certain level. The style of comedy, the writing. Also, at around that time, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do creatively, and writing something sort of personal was really interesting to me. So, as you saw the documentary, I formed a duo with a friend of mine, and it was the way that you could write a song that wasn't overtly funny. What you were laughing at is the process, the way that they're kind of bouncing the lyrics back and forth and trying to kind of come up and getting on these strange metaphors and trying to kind of figure out how to write the song, even though the song's like clearly not going to be a hit. They're so committed to it.
We're going to start this podcast just like Ishtar starts. First, people are only gonna see our logo. Much like you only saw the names Warren Beatty, Isabella Adjani, and Dustin Hoffman. And then you hear Okay, here we go. Let's try this for real this time. And this time we're gonna say, hosting a podcast is dangerous business. Taylor singing and recording don't go hand in hand.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Woo!
Not
and
worthy.
then you
I'm not
open,
worthy.
and you're with great singers and songwriters and great podcasters. And, I mean, what can't you accomplish with a piano and your true enthusiasm?
Oh my gosh. This movie proves there's a lot that you cannot accomplish with that.
You mean that being a terrible songwriter doesn't make you a good CIA agent?
No, it also doesn't make you a good subject for a movie.
Telling the truth is a dangerous
thing.
Dangerous! Telling the truth can be dangerous.
What? Danger. Telling the truth can be dangerous. Telling the truth can be dangerous
business.
Telling the truth can be dangerous business. Why? 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 Telling the truth can be dangerous business. Because if yourself,
Because
you
if
don't
you-
know why.
Huh?
Well, I'm just giving you what the idea is. Telling the truth can be dangerous business. If you don't know yourself, then you don't know why.
Oh, is that brilliant?
Telling the truth can be dangerous business. Honest and popular don't go hand in hand.
I just want you to know, I taught this to myself on the piano about 20 minutes ago.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
There you go. I haven't played piano since the 9th grade, but
I love it.
I did sound that one out by ear.
That's amazing. Thank you
Which-
for that.
Should tell you the talents of, oh gosh, what are their names? Chuck and Lyle, Rogers and Clark, the wannabe Simon and Garfunkel.
Oh, right, that's their names.
They're pretty, I mean, TBH, they're pretty forgettable. I'm
Yeah.
going to leave that app open on my iPad, just in case we need it again.
Thank you.
Yeah, just in case. But,
So, have we started the episode?
yeah, that was my intro.
Well,
Remember
I
when
love
I texted
it.
you and I said, I have a great idea for the intro? That was it.
I was not expecting that, but that was just beautiful.
Well,
Thank you, Taylor.
I told you I had a surprise, and I told you not to get your hopes up. So, I hope everything I said lived up to that.
Oh, it did. Can we sing that song together now? Because those lyrics are perfect.
The ones that I just riffed on to make a parody?
Yes.
Okay. So, I think I said...
I'm ready.
What did I say? I think I said...
Hey, I know the words. If you want to do the piano, I'll do the words.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Recording a podcast is dangerous business. Singing and us don't go hand in hand.
Yay! Woo! We will not promise to sing on this podcast because we break that promise every episode.
Woo!
Literally
Consistency.
every episode, I think we have done terrible singing.
Probably except for our first one, which makes sense because we were just trying to keep it together.
Yeah, we were trying to make a good impression, and now it's episode 18, and it's out the window.
Whatever. Out the window.
I know, we can legally buy a lottery ticket now. How great is that?
Oh my goodness. Let's go smoke a cigarette. Or let's not kill ourselves. I don't know.
Clearly, Kyla and I are big smokers and gamblers.
We are huge. We're the biggest smokers. Like, I've got the biggest lighter you've ever seen. Although I was smoking a pipe 2 episodes ago, so
This is
anything can
true.
happen.
Yeah. That was convincing.
Hey, so you want to, I don't know, introduce the podcast real quick?
Oh, well, welcome to Neru and Blake. I always try and say your last name with a little flair, and I don't think it ever works. Much
all
like Clark and Rogers, we are a podcasting duo. And I like to think we actually have some talent and self-awareness, but you can be the judge
too.
of that and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes.
Let us know if we're right
Apple
about that.
Podcasts. Yeah. So we are a podcast that attempts to keep up with Lorelei and Rory's pop culture references on Gilmore Girls. For real, though, I'm Taylor.
And I'm Kyla.
And this week we are talking one of the literally most notorious movie flops of all time. In what we are kind of calling, or at least what I'm sort of calling, our classic movie series that is ongoing.
Yeah. That will be continued.
At least one more episode after
Yeah.
this. We did Citizen Kane, we did Misery, and now we are doing, what would you say, a drop in quality, maybe?
A little bit. Little less grabbing than Misery, I would say.
Maybe not as well written.
Yeah, maybe not.
It's original. It's
That's
unique.
just
It's one of a
great.
kind.
So is
boy.
Napoleon Dynamite. That doesn't mean it makes a good movie.
You don't like Napoleon Dynamite?
Oh my gosh, I was scarred. You want to hear this story of the worst vacation of my life?
Yes, I do.
That probably sounds so white privilege of me to say that I had the worst vacation of my life because it's a vacation. But when you're, 13, you don't have a choice, right? At the mercy of your parents.
Oh, yeah.
So, and when my mom listens to this, she will just cringe and apologize to me once again. But we went down to Florida. Stayed with my grandma. My grandma's an interesting lady. Not my Nana. She's the one who's been on here. My grandma. And
Gotcha.
we spent the vacation painting the inside and the outside of her house. And quoting Napoleon Dynamite non-stop. An entire week of just my parents and uncle quoting that movie endlessly.
So did you hate that movie because you didn't like the movie, or do you hate the movie because of that experience?
Mostly the experience.
Because I love that movie and our family quotes it all the live long day.
I'm so glad that you have never quoted it in my presence.
Gosh.
Oh, no. Oh, I cannot. I'm going to start putting Snapchat filters on your face.
Oh, no.
Yeah, see how you like that.
Well, some of them don't bother me. I just don't like face swaps and face distortions. Fact, this Taylor is not on Snapchat because she really hates face swapping and things that screw up your face.
Another fact, though, is that Taylor does have a Snapchat account, and Kyla sent her many snaps that she never opened until she realized that Taylor does not use Snapchat.
Sorry.
They probably weren't that great. It's all good.
No, I'm sure they were great.
They were probably me, my face distorted.
Well, so I'm sorry you had to go to Florida and listen to Napoleon Dynamite all week. But at least you didn't go to Ishtar?
Yeah. I agree. So yeah, we're talking Ishtar, which I have dubbed Iktar.
And I can't really disagree with you. Though I'm getting the sense that I enjoyed this movie more than you did.
We're going to find out.
Let's kick it off with a transitional segment.
You're the best, you know?
The worst.
Today, in honor of awful singers on Iktar, we are talking favorite and least favorite Gilmore Girls musical performances. Give me your best.
My all-time favorite, and I think one that Clark and Rogers would approve of, is the guy who officiates Liz and TJ's wedding. And he sings about how today we share our love. And when we were kids, we shared our toys, and now we share love at their Renaissance-style wedding.
I don't remember that.
It is amazing, and we should definitely play a clip right here.
Where's the minister?
As kids we shared our toys with all the girls and boys. Barrel of monkeys, your battleship sunk me. Please recall the joy. Willow, clue, mousetrap, passion, spirograph, kaleidoscope spinning, Yahtzee I'm winning. Think of how we laughed. But today we share our love. Today we share our love. For love is the greatest toy around.
Oh. Think of something not funny.
Can't. You may plant the ceremonial sword.
Can't. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, yep, that's a good one.
Okay,
Excellent
what's
choice.
your favorite?
So I couldn't think of many, but the one that I just immediately came to mind is Lorelei singing to Luke in the karaoke bar.
If I should stay, I would only be in your way. So I'll go.
Whitney Bird? Oh, I think it's Dolly inspired.
But I know I'll think of you each step of the
Classic.
I will always love you. I always notice that she sang it a little bit off.
Yeah.
She like sang it too fast. But maybe that's, she's drunk, she's nervous.
Well, and
So,
I
yeah,
think
very
she
touching.
says she's going for the Dolly version, not the Whitney version. So maybe she's going for a little country twang.
Yeah, I see. Oh, that makes sense. So yeah, that's gotta be my favorite.
Taking with me. So goodbye. Please don't cry. We both know I'm not what you need, and I will always love you.
All right, worst.
Worst? I feel like there's gotta be a Life and Death Brigade something in there. Well, we've talked about this one already, but I definitely have some mixed feelings about at least the length of the musical in A Year in the Life.
Yeah.
There were definitely parts that made me laugh, like the line where it's like, I am like you except in pants, or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
I thought that was really funny. But then it just kept going. So, oh, and then it's topped by Carole King singing one of her own songs, like breaking the fourth wall. Actually, that's by far the worst, because Carole King is great, and she shouldn't be subjected to that. Carole King as Sophie, the music store owner, is like, well, I've written some songs, and then she breaks out into I Feel the Earth Move Under My Feet, and like a real life Carole King song.
Yeah, that is
And
weird.
Everyone's like, that sucks. We don't want it in the musical. And I'm like, 1, that's not true. 2, this really breaks the fourth wall and makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That was maybe the worst moment in the entire revival.
Really?
For me, anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, I think the musical it ruined itself.
Yeah,
It's
too
just
much.
Too much. Too much. Not enough lane.
Oh, agreed. What's your worst moment?
Yeah, it's got to be the musical. Just because I've watched A Year in the Life through again a second time since, and I just skipped right past it. I was like, this is worthless.
It doesn't really move the story until the very end.
No, right. Which that could have been done, very, very much quicker.
Efficiency, people.
Yeah, get on it. So yeah, I think that sums up the best and the worst.
Agreed. So, speaking of the worst, are you ready to talk Ishtar?
I don't know, but I guess that's what's next, huh?
Yes. So, we just talked about recently. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just laughing thinking of this movie. So, this episode is called The Breakup Part 2, and the plot summary from IMDb, written by a user named Alex. Rebounding from a fight with Dean, Rory ends up kissing Tristan at a party.
Ugh.
Yeah, ugh. While Lorelei follows her own impulse to show up at Max's house for a night of passion. Okay. So that's a little simplistic, but basically the whole episode, Lorelei's trying to get Rory to wallow. And Rory's like, no, I'm going to keep myself busy. I'm not going to be sad. And then she and Lorelei have this conversation.
Get back in your pajamas, go to bed, eat nothing but gallons of ice cream and tons of pizza. Don't take a shower or shave your legs or put on any kind of makeup at all. And just sit in the dark and watch a really sad movie and have a good long cry and just wallow. You need to wallow. No, Rory, your first love is intense. And your first breakup even more intense. Shoving it away and ignoring it while you make lists it's not going to help.
I don't want to wallow.
Try it for one day.
No,
One day of pizza and pajamas, I'll rent Love Story and The Champ and Affair to Remember, Ishtar.
I don't want to be that kind of girl.
The kind of girl who watches Ishtar?
Basically, she keeps that attitude for the whole episode until she kisses Tristan and realizes, oh, actually, I'm not doing well. And then comes back home and says, in what I think is one of the most, saddest Rory moments in the whole series.
Yeah.
I'm ready to wallow now.
Oh, yeah. But
Yeah.
that ice cream man, that was appealing.
Yes. So, when you first heard Rory and Lorelai have this conversation, what did you think?
Well, I still have not seen An Affair to Remember, which I know is kind of a sin.
It's so good.
Yes, I do want to see it. So I knew what that was, but I didn't know any of the other movies that she was listing. And I didn't know what Ishtar was. So I just kind of thought, oh, it must be like favorite movies of theirs. And I wasn't surprised that I didn't recognize the titles of their favorite movies because that's just so them. What about you?
Well, I have seen An Affair to Remember, and I definitely recommend it. It is super romantic classic, and if you've ever seen Sleepless in Seattle, that's a really important reference.
Mm-hmm.
But I have not seen Love Story or The Champ, and I had not seen Ishtar till for this.
Yeah.
So I understood in the context what she was saying, but I didn't really know how these movies fit together.
Right.
Or what Lorelai meant when she said the kind of girl that watches Ishtar.
Right. Yeah, that's what I didn't know either.
Mm-hmm.
So this movie, as we alluded to, or I guess we stated, it's about a couple of songwriters. They've got a passion for it. Mm-hmm. Good on them. But it's Dustin Hoffman and Warren Beatty, who now Warren Beatty,
but yes,
Beatty, Warren Beatty, which I don't know any of his other movies.
Well, you might know him as "And the Oscar Goes to La La Land" guy.
That was him?
Actually, Faye Dunaway said it, but he and Faye Dunaway were the ones.
He is the worst.
Who mistakenly announced La La Land won Best Picture.
Oh, jeez, I didn't know that.
I didn't think about it as I was watching the movie, but I was reminded recently.
Huh. Well, Warren Beatty, you have not treated me very well. So it's got him, Dustin Hoffman, who I know from other movies, but he was just a little, I don't know, it's like movies from the 80s I'm not super interested in. It's like they're old enough that they're out of style, but they're not old enough to be classics. Except for, The Breakfast Club, those, teenage movies, but just, the look of a lot of, 80s movies just kind of look too outdated to me. And they're not old enough to be classic. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I don't think I agree with that, but I can see what you mean about them being, kind of, especially for us, in that awkward stage of, we weren't alive for them, and, we were too young to watch them when they were popular when we were alive.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also not so old that it's, they're not like Citizen Kane.
Right. So Dustin Hoffman is in a lot of movies that are just right at that spot for me still. Mm-hmm. Although he is in one of my all-time favorite movies. See, whenever I say that, I'm like, wait, what's the title of it? Am I going to forget? I get, so much pressure on myself. Stranger Than Fiction.
Oh.
Which, have you seen that?
I almost never fall asleep in movies, but it was not a reflection of the movie. It was a reflection of basically pulling almost all-nighters during finals week and then trying to watch that movie after graduation. Ooh. Not my graduation, but going to a graduation. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I would like to rewatch it.
Okay, well, that's allowed. So, yeah, he's in that, but that's not an 80s film. That's a 2000s film. But anyways, if you haven't seen it, great movie. Definitely not your average Will Ferrell movie. There's my plug. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, so it stars them and also that one lady. What's her name?
Oh, the one whose name I totally butchered in the opening? Isabel...
Elaine May?
Oh, that's the director and writer.
Oh, I thought she was also the one who starred in it.
It's Isabel Adjani.
Well,
which I'm saying with my very American accent.
Great. But yeah, it's basically Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman. Bad songwriters. Everyone knows it. Mm-hmm. And the only place that'll book them is Morocco. So they go to Morocco, and is the town Ishtar or is the country Ishtar, right?
Okay.
Help me out here.
So, I watched this movie on a plane, which means I'm pretty focused, because there aren't many distractions, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I could not follow the plot of this movie for the life of me. It makes no sense. But what I think I've cobbled together from the reviews and other things I've read post-watching the movie is they're supposed to perform in Morocco, so that's where they fly into. But then Dustin Hoffman meets Isabel Adjani, or however you say her last name, and she's a revolutionary from the neighboring fictional country of Ishtar.
Okay.
And they somehow end up in Ishtar. With a plot that involves the CIA.
Get into Ishtar? Like, they walk from their hotel, and suddenly they're in Ishtar.
And Dustin Hoffman gives her his passport.
So how did he cross that? Oh, but he got it back.
Yeah, the plot does not.
Yeah.
It does
okay,
not.
so they're going to Morocco to sing at a hotel, and the people just loved them. Which how did they just randomly like them?
Maybe
but
they're
they
starved for entertainment.
Yeah. But on the way, they meet, that lady who is a part of the revolution trying to free the Ishtarians.
From a guy that the CIA... I think maybe they're trying to make some commentary on how the U.S. interferes in Middle Eastern governments, but I don't know.
No.
I
they get caught up in this mess, and Dustin Hoffman is talking to the CIA agent from the U.S. The other guy, Warren Beatty, is talking to the lady from Ishtar, and they're both trying to help the other side, but then the two sides both decide they need to die because they know too much. But then they survive, and the lady decides, I don't want to kill you anymore. And they get a record deal because they found this secret map, and so they say that they'll give it back if they get a record deal and a live concert at that hotel in Morocco. Not New York, not LA, not Vegas.
And I think
it's the hotel in Morocco.
And it's recorded. I
live.
think recorded live so they can sell the live recording like live in Morocco or something.
Right. That you see at the end is on super sale clearance.
Yeah.
So that is the plot.
We think.
And, oh my goodness, Taylor, I don't know about you. You were on a plane. I was on my couch. I was so bored. I was just, genuinely bored. I wasn't even, laughing at it. I was just bored.
I'm so sorry, because that was not my experience at all.
I texted you and I said, this is unbearable.
I know. And I texted you after I watched it and I was like, it's a hoot. This movie, it is awful. This is, not a good movie, but I was so entertained by its badness.
You were?
I would watch it again with the right people.
Are you
kidding
me?
I would watch it again with the right people to make fun of it. But also, context. I'm gonna have a real talk moment with you.
Okay, please do.
I may or may not, in January of this year, have watched the Vanilla Ice movie, Cooler Than Ice, and had a grand old time making fun of it with my brother.
Okay, see, and for me, Ishtar there was a line, okay? Mm-hmm. Here's another one of my, I feel like I've already given an analogy like this, but
Give it to me.
Okay, here it is. So for me, these two characters were dumb, and you knew that in the movie. They're the protagonists, but they're dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, it made me think of Dumb and Dumber, right? Protagonists are idiots. They end up in some trouble, but they get out of it because they're idiots and work it out. But for me, the characters weren't quite stupid enough, and the shenanigans weren't quite ridiculous enough that I could laugh at it. It was just, like, why am I watching the dumb people? So it wasn't dumb enough to be funny to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was just bad.
You mean the song that they sing in the cafe when they're banging on the bongos and dancing? Like, that wasn't enough for you?
No.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I was on the plane, like, trying to stifle my laughter. Like, and here's what I'll say. I actually got a little worried that I was gonna actually genuinely like this movie. 'Cause
really,
as one who writes movie reviews, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I like, if my opinion, and I try not to, like, read any reviews before I see something, because I, like, want it to be my true opinion, and I do feel like I'm, like, really, like, in general, pretty honest. If, like, my review doesn't match with, like, what the general consensus is saying, I'll tell you that. But I still get insecure sometimes if it's, like, everyone says this movie is terrible, and I liked it. Like, what does that say?
Right.
And so in the first, like, 20-25 minutes of this movie, when you're just watching them be terrible songwriters in New York, I thought that was actually really funny. But
that
then
was the part I couldn't stand.
But then they went to Morocco, and I was like, oh my gosh, the plot makes no sense. The writing is all over the place. And, like, I felt like this was trying to be two movies. Like, there was one movie that I liked about, like, just two terrible songwriters trying to make it in New York. And then there was this other, like, something action-adventure movie in the Middle East. And, like, these two movies do not go together. Like, I feel like it was trying to be a funny Indiana Jones, and it wasn't.
Yeah, I didn't like either half, but the second part, the lengthier part in Morocco, was better to me, because at least something was happening.
Well, touche.
I understand what you're saying, though. I mean, because they were bad, but they just weren't, I was not entertained at all.
Okay. Now, that's also how I feel about Napoleon Dynamite, though, is I love it because you can laugh at them, and it's so funny.
And to me, it's just too bad. And I think that experience attributed a lot to that, because I did watch it twice.
Uh-huh.
So, and I remember thinking it was funny. But now, I can't go back there.
See, and Napoleon Dynamite's a movie I laugh at no matter how many times I've seen it. And every time it feels like I find a new thing that I find is like, oh, I never noticed they did that before.
Oof. Yeah, I think mostly because of my terrible Florida trip.
Well, that's fair. So you have a little bit of trauma associated with it.
Yes. Which also, it was in December, so it was my Christmas break, and it was cold, and we went to the beach, one time.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry.
Man. Thank you. That means a lot.
I do give you genuine sympathy for that.
Thank you.
I did also feel your pain when I went to, in college I went on a trip to the Middle East, actually. Not Morocco. But there were several guys on the trip, and a few girls, but mostly the guys. They were quoting the movie The Other Guys with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg all week. I've never seen it, but I feel like I have, because they quoted it all week. Oh. And so...
See, it ruins it.
Well, yeah, and, like, I'm, like, not in on the joke. And we're on, like, the school trip, like, packed start to finish, so I can't watch this movie and be in on the joke. And even then, I'd still be late to the party.
Right. See, and so doesn't that just make you, when you think of The Other Guys, does that make you go, ugh?
A little bit. I mean, if I saw it, I might like it, but I've never...
Oh, it's a great movie.
Okay.
Another Will Ferrell one, the only Will Ferrell one that I like, where he's, like, being funny. Okay, the only one that I, like, really like. I can... So, anyways, I'm not big into, like, all those, like, the stupid funny, but I did really like The Other Guys. Like, I own it. I used to.
Maybe not.
Yeah, that's a funny movie. Okay, so yes, overquoting ruins things. For sure. That's the lesson.
Let's see. Any other reactions to this movie?
I'm sure I'll give more, but yeah, basically I didn't like it.
That's fair. I don't defend this as a great movie. It was pretty terrible. But
it is nice that you were able to be entertained.
Oh, yes, I was very entertained, but not for the reasons that the people who made it wanted me to be entertained.
Right. And, honestly, if something is entertaining to you, I think it's fine. Like, that's what that's what media is for, right? Mm-hmm. Movies, TV shows, to entertain you. So, that's valid. I've been listening to a podcast about modern art. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because normally you say about modern art, like, that's really weird, or I could have done that. But if you like it, if you have, like, your own experience with it, that's what it's all about, man.
Boom.
Peace and love.
There's more to art than entertainment, but I would agree with you.
But, like, having your own experience, that is valid. Yeah.
And a movie that is, no matter what, even if I didn't take away from that movie exactly what they wanted, it's meant to be a comedy.
Yeah.
Not exactly the comedy they intended to make, but...
Hot fudge love, chocolate covered. Hot fudge love, cherry ripple. Kisses, dishes, knishes, fishes. This is bliss, blisses. This is...
Critics agreed with us.
Yeah. It's pretty much universally hated. Although, in the last few years, now that it's finally gotten a DVD release stateside, which it did not happen until the last few years.
Oh, that's hysterical.
People have been rewatching and reconsidering. Some people think it's really good now, or at least better than what they thought in 1987. So,
which I will have more on that in a little bit, but it does have a fandom.
Well, and just for some context, when this movie came out in 1987, according to Box Office Mojo, it had an estimated $55 million budget, which is pretty big for a comedy.
Yeah.
And it only, in its entire run, made $14 million.
That's bad.
So, any movie that doesn't make what it took to make it, any movie that doesn't break even is considered a flop. But this one is a notorious one. And the LA Times, they have a list, like a slideshow that they've updated as recently as this year, and they count it among some of the costliest flops of all time to this day. So other ones on this list, John Carter, Battlefield Earth, Howard the Duck, Speed Racer, The Adventures of Pluto Nash, Cutthroat Island, Geely, Mars Needs Moms, Sahara. If you know anything about film history, you are probably aware that those are all pretty universally panned movies, and if you don't know anything about film history, you've probably never heard of them, and that tells you exactly what you need to know.
Yep.
And it was pretty much, like, this movie, it had a cloud hanging over its head even before it came out.
Oh.
So it came out 5 months late, and it was $23 million over its original budget. This is according to the New York Times. Although, the New York Times even had it estimated at a smaller budget than Box Office Mojo does today, so. Plus, that probably didn't include the $8 million spent on advertising to promote it. And there were just all sorts of costs associated with it. So there's, at the time, like, anonymous people were saying that the studio bought the movie without even a script in hand, which I guess is atypical because it had Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman and Elaine May, who at the time, like, she was known as a pretty good comedy writer. And so they negotiated their contracts so that Beatty and Hoffman would each get paid $5.5 million, and then Beatty got an extra $500,000 because he was producing. Elaine May would get $1.5 million for writing the script and directing. Okay, and this is, like, before any costs associated with production. So that's $14 million before they even started producing it. So then originally they were like, oh, this will only cost $28 million. That was what Warren Beatty was telling the studio. And then one of Columbia Studios' physical production experts a couple weeks later said, well, this could probably be made for $34 million. And then it ended up ballooning to $55 million.
How do you spend 20, 30 extra million?
Well, here are a few ways they might have spent that money. It was a 94-day shooting schedule that was, like, that's pretty long for a small comedy, or a quote-unquote small comedy. And it was in Morocco, and so that's, like, that added apparently, like, a lot of difficulty and expense. Mm-hmm. And then, this is rumors, but who's to say if it's true or not. So that the stars, Beatty and Hoffman, and director Elaine May were all working on their own cuts of the movie. And at one time during editing, there were 3 separate teams of editors working around the clock and being paid double time, triple time, and even more expensive golden time. So apparently they, like, could not come to a resolution. Like, there were tons of just, like, competing personalities. Like, perfectionists on the set. And apparently the cinematographer was also, like, really opinionated about how he wanted stuff done. So it was just, like, this, like, perfect storm of everybody having different opinions. Mm-hmm. And then apparently Columbia started designing a poster in April 1986. But Mr. Beatty did not approve a poster until a year later, 6 weeks before the movie opened. So gosh. All sorts of little things like that probably just added up. Like, yeah. I'm sure that most movies have unexpected costs, especially if you're shooting overseas and, like, working with animals and that kind of thing, but, like, just a lot.
Yeah.
So...
very mismanaged.
Yeah. Very mismanaged, it sounds like. And it's hard to, like, pinpoint exactly where that happened. Like, was it because they pitched the movie poorly? Is it because stuff went wrong on set? Like, I don't know. I wasn't there.
Right.
But anyway.
Oof.
And... so by the time that movie came out, yeah.
It was already. And I watched, let's see, I read maybe that parts of that same piece from the New Yorker. And let's see, Peter Biskin maybe wrote the biography of Warren Beatty. And
we did not read the same piece then, because I don't know what you're going to say. Mine's from the New York Times.
Oh, I thought you said New Yorker. Okay.
Oh, my bad.
This one's from the New Yorker. And Peter wrote in his book about Warren Beatty, Ishtar was being distributed by an unfriendly studio that Beatty suspected was leaking damaging items to the press. It's like, that seems kind of odd. Why would you think that the studio that's producing your movie is saying bad things about it? And then I watched an interview with Charles Grodin, and he played the CIA agent in Ishtar.
Oh, yeah.
And it was an interview, and basically it just sounded like he was still trying to defend the film, you know, decades later. Mm-hmm. And didn't do a great job of it. So he's
slipped out there.
Yeah. So he talked about how everyone was so focused on how much we spent and why did everyone care about the budget. But the point was that they didn't make back their budget, which is like what every business endeavor is trying to do, is make a profit. So you need to make back what you spent first. So he was trying to defend it that way. And then his one defense, too, was this movie probably is hipper than the audience.
Ooh.
So, like, we just didn't get it.
Oh, my gosh. That is one of my least favorite things, when people are like, ugh, you just didn't get it. Yeah. Because it's like, okay, fine if the movie's not for me. Like, not every movie is made for every person, and that's fine. But a well-made movie
Like, you shouldn't have to have a certain life experience to get it. And you also, like, it's fine if you just don't like a movie.
Yeah. It's fine if other people do, but when there's a very, very small group of people who like a movie and everybody else is saying, whew, baby, there might be some truth behind that. So he was convinced that it was too insider, you know, only people in showbiz get it.
Which people in showbiz got it?
Yeah. Yeah. So here's a little bit of that interview.
You know, I once wrote a movie called Movers and Shakers. It was about behind the scenes in Hollywood. It was very good if you knew about behind the scenes in Hollywood. Otherwise, it was too inside. This movie probably is hipper than the audience. Instead of saying, oh, Elaine May, Warren Beatty, Dustin Hoffman, how could they make such a bomb? You know, notice I left my name out of that. You know, how could they do? Well, they didn't. They might have made something too hip for the room.
So this is part of this is an interview for the Waiting for Ishtar documentary, which is all about the fandom surrounding Ishtar.
Mm-hmm.
It exists. There are fans.
Tell me more.
So they interviewed some people involved with the film.
Mm-hmm.
And fans. And I haven't seen it because they've done some smaller showings in salons, as they call them. But it was an Indiegogo campaign that was backed by 74 people, raised $17,000 Canadian dollars, because it is produced and created by John Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
And Jonathan Crombie.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that name?
No. Not off the top of my head.
Let me give you a hint.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, Anne.
Say that again?
I'm so sorry, Anne.
I'm so sorry, Anne?
Uh-huh.
With a little Minnesota twang?
Well, that's supposed to be Canadian.
Oh, that, they're close. Close.
Gilbert Blythe!
Who's that?
On Anne of Green Gables.
Oh! Okay, sorry. I have to be honest. I'm not a huge, I have nothing against Anne of Green Gables. I just haven't. I have a little exposure. My sister got into it, and I was in the room when she watched it, and I know there's Gilbert.
Anne of Green Gables?
I've seen scenes.
Oh,
sorry.
It's so wonderful. Okay, it's not something I've watched a million times, but I've watched it several times. And Gilbert Blythe, okay, well, for other people, I'm sure they will feel just a warm feeling when you think of Jonathan Crombie, Gilbert Blythe.
Aww. Well, I'm glad
Such a sweetie.
Have warm feelings.
Thank you. And Jonathan Crombie actually died 2 years ago? A year ago? So the film was kind of, now dedicated to him. But John Mitchell finished it. It came out much like Ishtar, a little later than expected. But it's out and they're showing it. And the trailer for it, it started with a quote from Elaine May, the director.
Oh, no.
If all the people who hate Ishtar had seen it, I would be a rich woman today.
Ooh, that's sharp.
But basically claiming that the people who hated it actually didn't see it.
That's actually, if you flip through the reviews on IMDb, that's pretty much what people who love it are saying. If you hate this movie, you probably haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's like, no, I think we've seen it all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it seems like they're just a little salty about people's dislike for it. I don't know. That would be so hard, though. Imagine putting your heart and soul and millions of dollars into something and then everyone telling you it was terrible. Like, that would suck. That would be hard to just accept and move on. But it would be so much better just to accept it, learn from it, and move on.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll get into this, I'm sure. I don't want to cut off you telling us about this cool documentary because I do want to hear more. But I'm not sure it's all her fault. We'll say.
Okay, interesting. Tell me how it wasn't entirely her fault. I'm interested.
Okay, well, I will say there were some reviews that were decent of this movie, believe it or not, even at the time it came out. My favorite thing when I was looking for reviews of this, the Washington Post on the same day published a negative review and a positive review. And I don't know for sure, but I like to think they ran side by side together in the paper. I don't know.
Much like Paris's opinion.
Oh, yeah!
2 opinions that she wanted printed in the Yale Daily News.
Oh, yeah! That's a great call out.
My pro-tenure piece.
Okay, thank you.
And my anti-tenure piece.
Paris, come on.
Just hear me out.
No.
When I first started writing, I believed passionately that tenure was a reward for excellent service and a way for a school to attract the very best teachers from all over the country.
Sold. Let's go with that.
But once I finished writing, I started thinking about the other side of the argument. I mean, money and employment for the rest of your life, no matter what. Where's the incentive to keep the standards high? I mean, remember Professor Levers? He got tenured and lost all interest. Just sat there, doughy and sleepy. It was like being taught by Jimmy Kimmel.
Anti-tenure. Stamp it, ship it.
I was thinking maybe you could print both pieces.
What?
Side by side, like a point-counterpoint.
You want me to print a point-counterpoint where both points are written by the same person?
Bold, huh?
You have 5 minutes to pick a side.
Okay, so now it's also worth pointing out the positive review is much shorter. And it does say the plot is trickier than quicksand, which I would agree with. But they say it's an unabashed vamp for a pair of household names, and such it works, often hilariously. And they want to be Simon and Garfunkel, but they're Abbott and Costello. So, somebody liked this movie. Mm-hmm. But then you also have the negative review, which... This is the opening line of the review. I appreciate this writing. It's a gem, I think. A mammoth dud, a catastrophe, a huge floundering stinker of biblical proportions. That's what all the advanced stories on Ishtar have prepared us for. In fact, it's not nearly so grand an achievement. Ishtar doesn't attempt enough to be considered a magnificent failure. It's something far less substantial. It's piddling, a hangdog little comedy with not enough laughs. Ooh.
Oh,
that's a burn.
Ooh, that is.
He
Ladies
says
and gents, watch out.
I don't know. As one who's not a Beatty connoisseur, I can't say for sure, but this seems mean. It's the worst performance Beatty has ever given. Usually stars battle over salaries and close-ups and top billing, but here Hoffman and Beatty seem to fight over who gets to be second banana.
Ooh. Now, but it probably is the worst performance from him. But like everyone has to have one. I don't know.
Touché. And then he says, caught between making the picture sizable enough to justify the presence of its stars and maintaining its status as a cozy table-for-two affair, she, Elaine May, has tried to play it both ways. As a result, the movie can't figure out what it wants to be. And I agree with that criticism. Like I said, it's like trying to be 2 movies, I think. Yeah. But a lot of the blame, and he was doing it there, which, as a critic, you can find somebody, like, you might be able to point and say, I think it's this person's fault. But Elaine May got a lot of flack for this movie, so much so that it pretty much destroyed her career. And so just a couple months ago, there was a piece in The Guardian talking about this movie because it's its 30th anniversary this year. And this is a little bit lengthy, but I just think it really makes a good point that, okay, it said Elaine May had a reputation as a quote-unquote take-no-guff dame in the male-dominated industry. And, like, that was something she already had associated with her before this movie came out. But this article makes a really good point that plenty of male directors have survived flops of far greater magnitude. Adjusting for inflation or not, Ishtar's losses pale in comparison with those of Joe Wright's Pan. Do you remember that movie that came out a couple years ago? Yeah. And Gore Verbinski's The Lone Ranger, which came out a couple years ago. And those are both still working directors. And there are other movies like Stealth. I barely remember about that movie, but the director, he has, like, had it multiple times to try and redeem his career. And so I think this is a really interesting perspective, saying,
Yeah.
you know, she had a career that she was pretty well respected, like brushing up a lot of comedy scripts, making them better. She'd done some directing on her own. And so maybe the punishment for this movie was just way disproportionate.
Yeah.
To what happened here. Like, I can understand someone saying, like, hey, you didn't do a good job with this movie. We didn't make our money back. I don't want to work with you. But the fact is, there are plenty of male directors who do get to work again, and she didn't.
Yeah. You know, and I saw there's a lot of talk about that around Wonder Woman recently, and I saw a great tweet because it was just, they were like, it was a huge success. Wow. And and someone tweeted out, let's see, we'll know there's equality not when a woman succeeds in a movie, but when a female director creates a flop, but she can still continue to work. And I thought that was so true because, I mean, that's true of any career, right? Like, you're not always going to make a success.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know much about Elaine May. I really don't.
Well, that's probably indicative.
Yeah,
Like,
that sucks, though. One movie, you go out on a limb and...
yeah. Well, and she wrote and directed it, so...
Mm-hmm.
But then, this is also from The Guardian. This writer says, but for the cardinal sin of failing while female, May couldn't get another film project off the ground and instead wrote intermittently, including well-received scripts for The Birdcage and Primary Colors. As ever, temperamental men get vaunted as tormented artistes, while temperamental women get labeled as emotional and cast aside. And I mean, think about how many difficult people, like, I think, like, I was just listening to a podcast in the last week. They were talking about how Christopher Nolan, like, he doesn't want anyone to have water bottles on the set. Like, because I guess it's, like, not a period thing, and it also, like, he doesn't like the noise of the crinkling and, like, that kind of thing. Like, and, like, I can get it if you don't want that noise to show up on the tape, and if you don't, like, want it to be distracting. But it seems a little, like, okay, like, whatever. But everyone's like, oh, he's such a great artist. And this is not a diss on Christopher Nolan. Like, he's a great filmmaker, and I still really want to see Dunkirk. I haven't seen it. So,
yeah.
But I just think it's interesting. Comparison.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about chefery, you know, it's dominated by men. I mean, really, it's just all dominated by men, so they've had a lot more time and opportunity to fail and succeed. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to women, not just I don't know, it's like people still want women to earn respect instead of just like, hey, now that we like allow women to vote and we allow like women can do work and things, they're still like, yeah, but you can't just like do all of it right away and you know, still have the same level of respect, when it's not like it's because we didn't have the opportunity to try in the past. You know, it wasn't because we weren't good at it. Yeah, so I'm sorry, Elaine May, that really sucks.
And I think it's totally fair for you and I to be like, we didn't like this movie. But also, I think we can say, why did she not get a chance to try again when she already, like, she'd had other opportunities in her career to prove that she had talent and could be an asset to movies. Yeah. And she had already proved that before this, and then it's like one flop and, like, taken away.
Yeah. Blech. I mean, just think, what if Citizen Kane, they had said, wow, this sucked. Well, and they did kind of, but not in it wasn't like a flop where, anyways, a little bit different. And
he still worked.
He would have been out. Yeah, I mean, that is true. It was, I guess it wasn't. It was a flop then. Yeah. And he still worked.
Granted, he didn't have artistic control like that ever again. Mm-hmm. But he still worked.
Yeah. Well, now I want to research Elaine May.
Maybe if we watch Waiting for Ishtar.
Yeah. I would do that. I could watch that.
We could watch that. That you wouldn't be subject to just Dustin Hoffman and Warren Beatty,
That's
you would
true.
have talking heads about the movie.
Come on, you crazy? I'm moving. Hawk? Just wait a minute. Here, just drink a little bit of this. Don't spill it, Hawk. Don't spill it. Don't spill it. Come on, that's all right. Okay.
Is this the oasis?
Does this look like an oasis to you?
Yeah, look at the birds. Are those vultures?
Yeah. You fainted. They thought you were dead.
You mean they're here on Spank?
Yeah. I think it's very important not to let yourself get too run down when you come out here. We just can't afford to walk around looking for an oasis. Do you understand?
I don't understand it. It was just an hour and a half outside of Shelley Benham. You can't miss it.
Who told you that?
But I have to admit one thing.
What?
In the beginning, when Dustin Hoffman said, "This is as good as anything," who'd he say? I forget what
Simon
band he
and
said.
Garfunkel?
Yeah, it's like, this is as good as anything they've ever written. And, like, when I heard it first, I was like, telling the truth is dangerous business. I was like, oh, yeah, that's fine. I was like, yeah, that's cool. And so I thought they were going to be great songwriters. But then I figured out they weren't good. But, like, it's interesting because they said, oh, yeah, this is great. So I was like, yeah, sure, it's great. Like, if the movie wants me to think it's great, I'll think it's great. So, like, I don't know, too, with this movie and as what happens and as what you try to avoid by not reading reviews ahead of time, you know, once one person says it's bad, then everyone wants to agree with them. So,
yeah.
But it was bad.
Yeah, but I feel like it is interesting because, like, I think I had read in the plot summary, like, oh, they're bad songwriters or something, or I picked up on it pretty quickly. But that is an interesting point because there were a lot of things that I felt like they did not make clear what you wanted to think. Like, I felt like in the movie they were setting up this love triangle. Like, oh, she's going to have to choose between them or, like, go back and forth. And then, like, the movie just ended. Or you just think the plot, like, whatever the deal, the map is happening. Or whatever's happening with that
Nothing
map.
really even happens with it. They just want the map, but what the map stands for doesn't even
make sense.
Come to fruition. Well, it doesn't even happen. Like, nothing happens.
Yeah, so, like...
Because, like, you know, in Indiana Jones, they find the chest, and then stuff comes out of it, and they, you know, lock it up in storage. But, like, something happens when they get a hold of the item.
So what you're saying is something happened in the Indiana Jones movie, and nothing happened in this movie? Is that what you're saying?
That'd be correct.
Yeah. So I think that's what was most frustrating about this movie, is it set things up and then didn't do anything with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they could have told you, they're great songwriters, and then nothing happened. And it almost wouldn't be any different than what they did give us.
Yeah, that is actually accurate. Interesting.
So, there you go. Ishtar, what a movie.
What a throw.
What a smuck I was. Schmuck. It's not smuck, it's schmuck. Smuck. Schmuck. Smuck. Now say sh. Now say muck. Muck. Now say sh and muck together real fast. Smuck.
So,
yeah.
I think we know where we're going with this.
I think so.
So, how does this fit into the world of Gilmore Girls?
Oh, well, let me see. To answer that, we also need to look at the other films that Lorelei mentioned in this list of movies that they could rent, which we already said in A Fair to Remember. And the other ones were Love Story and The Champ. And A Fair to Remember, couple falls in love and agrees to meet in 6 months at the Empire State Building. But will it happen? Cary Grant and Deborah Kerr,
I think.
Kerr.
Her.
I'm gonna get my Kerr.
I'll whip my Kerr back and forth. I'm not
That was a
embarrassing.
good one-hit wonder. A love story. So that is, let's see, a story about a boy and a girl from different backgrounds fall in love regardless of their upbringing, and then tragedy strikes. And that one was a box office phenomenon. One of those movies that people waited in line for hours to see. So,
and I think it won Oscars.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's a pretty
good.
Generally, like, at the time anyway, it was well loved.
Yeah. The other movie, The Champ, Billy Flynn, a former boxing champion, is now a horse trainer in Hialeah. He makes just enough money to raise his little boy TJ, over whom he got custody after his wife Annie left him 7 years ago. TJ worships the champ, who is now working on his comeback in order to give his boy a better future. But suddenly, Annie shows up again. So that one, although it may sound riveting, not as hot at the box office as Love Story, or I'm sure Fair to Remember. But that one has Jon Voight, Ricky Schroeder, and Faye Dunaway.
Oh.
So, this list...
Both of our Oscar culprits.
Uh-huh. It has 2 good movies, 2 bad movies.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
Well, okay, also tell me this.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact A Fair to Remember is a movie that could make you cry, because there's a tragic element to it. And I know that a lot of people say Love Story makes them cry.
Oh.
Do you think The Champ is a cry-y movie, for lack of a real adjective?
I don't know. The images I saw, he was bloody and boxing gloves.
Let's see. What
it
happens? It
sounds intense.
The Champ, sad. Let's see what happens on Google. I will tell you. So this is when I do that. Okay, the top Google result. What is the saddest movie scene? Researchers say it may be in The Champ.
Oh, okay.
This is from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. So maybe. Ooh, it sounds like there's a death. That is very sad.
Okay.
So maybe it's almost a joke on Lorelei's part. Because all these other 3 movies are really sad. And all of a sudden, with that, like, I'll rent Love Story, The Champ, and A Fair to Remember. Oh, sad. Ishtar. And maybe she's saying Ishtar would make you cry because it's so bad?
Maybe. Or just throwing it in there as a funny but random, and because that's what then she pulls out at the end, you know, the kind of girl that watches Ishtar, like, then kind of saying, what, you think that's weird?
Mm-hmm.
But, like, she knows it's weird. Man, it's really just made me want to eat pizza. I don't know why.
And get in your pajamas and watch movies
Watch
all day?
movies. Yep, gallon of ice cream.
Well, and I almost wonder, okay, so the kind of girl who watches Ishtar, I presume by that phrase she's saying, oh, you might be embarrassed to admit that you watch Ishtar, which, given the movies they watch, I have a feeling this is by far not the worst movie that they watch and enjoy together.
Yeah.
But then Rory says the kind of girl who just falls apart because she doesn't have a boyfriend. And so maybe Rory is saying it's equally embarrassing to be the girl who doesn't... To be the girl who falls apart because she doesn't have a boyfriend. As it's the same kind of embarrassing as admitting you watch Ishtar.
I think that's totally right, because Lorelei, you know, she's trying to be soft about it, and instead of saying, because she knows what Rory's talking about. She doesn't want to be the kind of girl that, that gets all sad because she doesn't have a boyfriend. So, the kind of girl that watches Ishtar?
Mm-hmm.
And then Rory's like, no. Yeah, I think that's true, using that as kind of a, like, we know this isn't what we're really saying, but you know what I mean?
And if you want to know how Rory feels about being the kind of girl who falls apart without a boyfriend, just think about how it is watching Ishtar.
Basically, the worst.
All right.
I think we nailed it.
Yeah, nailed it.
You're welcome. What can I say but you're welcome?
Yeah. Oops. You're welcome. I can't rap like The Rock.
I think I might have that soundtrack almost memorized. Maybe.
I definitely have belted out some How Far I'll Go. And
you know, husband really likes Shiny and You're Welcome, and he likes to play those a lot. And so that's how I memorize them. Not that I'm choosing them necessarily, but he is. That's all right.
No judgment.
It's all good. But after 5 times, I'm ready to be done with it. Much like repeating Napoleon Dynamite quotes.
No judgment.
So, this does change how I read the scene, because I didn't understand that Lorelei was recommending Ishtar as a joke. Like, for all I knew, Ishtar was a fine movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it definitely changes how I read it. Lorelei was just being nice.
Yeah, well, and I knew it was a flop, but now that I have seen it, I can see why Rory might be like, oh, I don't really want to admit that we watch Ishtar.
Mm-hmm.
Although for the two of them, I mean, they watch so much, admitted, like they openly say, we watch so much garbage.
Yeah.
So yeah, it gave me a greater context, for sure. Which I feel like is the whole point of this podcast.
Yeah! Giving you context in Gilmore Girls.
But, that's not a joke. Why did I do that?
Such a weirdo.
Yeah. Bam.
Could you do another sound effect, please?
There's a bonus.
So, Taylor.
So, Kyla.
Is that our show for today? I think it is, because that's all I have.
That's my way of saying yes!
Woo! That is our show. Another one down. A nice little switch up compared to Misery. For sure.
I have to
and
tell you
Citizen
something.
Kane. Tell me.
I had a nightmare this week about Misery.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Oh, don't apologize. I signed up for it. It had something to do. There was Kathy Bates was there, and I think my foot was maybe getting hurt. I don't know.
Oh,
it was
no.
vague. It was a vague memory, but I woke up and I was like, I think I had a bad dream about Misery.
Oh no. Oh, Taylor, I'm sorry. You are sacrificing for this podcast.
You know, it's just who I am. I go above and beyond. I take my creative hobbies with me to my dreams.
Oh, jeez.
And to my musical talent.
Maybe you should create music for our show.
I don't know how our current song would feel about that. Because right now, all I can play is this and Jingle Bells.
Woo!
There you
Christmas
go.
in August.
Woohoo! Well, Merry Summer Christmas.
Ah, okay.
And thank you for listening and putting up with my terrible song playing. Hopefully...
no, I thought that was very great. Oh, you're thanking the audience.
I was thanking the audience. As always.
Okay.
We are thankful for your listenership. But in this moment, I'd like to apologize for any auditory trauma I may have caused. And thank you for your patience and kindness and love that I'm sure you will bestow in reviews and Twitter comments about my beautiful singing voice. Right?
I think they will. Guys, let us know what you think. Let us know if you've even watched Ishtar. Because...
Or waiting for Ishtar.
Or waiting for Ishtar. Again, we're not telling you that you should. But if you'd like to experience what we did, go right ahead, tweet at us at So It's a Show, email us, soitsashow@gmail.com. We'd love to hear.
Also, if there are any pop culture references in Gilmore Girls that you are curious about. We haven't said this in a while, but, like, we would love requests. If there's anything you're like, yo, what's up with this? I don't know what the heck Lorelei's talking about. Because guess what? We asked the same question.
Yep, amen. We can go out of order.
Yeah, Sister Suffragette.
Sister Suffragette.
Woohoo! And you can find me on Twitter at KYLACARNEIRO.
Interesting. Your voice has changed, Kyla.
Oh my gosh, Taylor, so is yours.
You can find me at tblake24. Although I did like not having to spell that. That was nice.
It was just nice. I worked on my alphabet. Anything else to add? Final wishes?
For our
Don't
next
go to
movie
Morocco
to be,
and get stuck in Ishtar.
For our next movie to be better.
Oh, it will be. It's a classic. It's a bona fide classic.
I have a feeling it will be. Here's a clip.
Maybe it's not so much swearing off all girls, but swearing off a certain kind of girl.
Meaning?
Meaning next time maybe you should pick a girl with a little more substance. You know, a girl who's smart and is driven and has ambition. You know, like Paris.
Are you serious?
Yeah, why not? Paris is smart and cute and interesting, and yes, she does bring her own unique set of baggage into the mix.
A matching set.
But she likes you. She's crazy about you. She thinks you're amazing.
You want me to date Paris?
Just think about it.
Me and Paris.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a wonderful friendship.
Who's Louis?
Just think.